it may sound overly simplistic, but really it does start locally. Almost every person working in Washington was a local politician first. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but overall, generally speaking, local politics, and I mean local, not just your state. I'm talking about like your city, your local school boards. It sounds like overly simplistic, like I said, but really it kind of starts there because if you start locally, eventually, and it'll take time. It took a long time for us to get where we are today in Washington, and it's not going to be turned on a dime tomorrow either. It's going to take some work. I might not see it in my lifetime, but I'm going to work on trying to put together a foundation anyhow, so that hopefully the next generation or those people who follow me will see where we're supposed to be going, and then pick up the mantle and take it take it to the next level until they're gone. But it starts locally. So I mean, your local school boards, that can be incredibly impactful. I mean, look at all the news that's going on right now. I write about, like you said, I write about a lot of topics.
Mm-hmm.
I write a lot about the CRT movement and the LGBT agenda in our public schools. Right. And if you can get involved in your local school board, you might be able to make just a little bit of a difference. You might save one or two kids from the inevitable outcome that I see coming if we don't change.
Mm-hmm.
So it can start on the school board, your local town council. Again, seems small, but town councils are basically they're the end line of like federal dollars. The federal government doles out money to states and local governments for various purposes all the time. If you're involved, so if you're involved in local government, your city council, your board of commissioners on the county level, something locally, that can make a difference. And you don't even have to pursue higher office. The point is that if you can get in there and you can turn the direction of things even just a little bit. If it's 1 or 2 degrees, even, you got to look at where that 1 or 2 degrees will eventually end up, years down the road, because that 1 to 2 degrees looks small here at the beginning, but over time that'll get really big. And so that's kind of where I see. That's really the only way. Unfortunately, getting back to the Matrix analogy, the machine world runs the world. And so, everything's always said, how many times do you read about the power of incumbency? If you're an incumbent, I think you're like 80% likely to keep your job. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. And that's because of the system. The system's rigged. You have the Republicans and Democrats controlling how districts are laid out. And, so you gerrymander districts to favor your party one way or the other. And so that way you can basically stay in office forever.
Forever. Clearly we have walking corpses.
You see.
Yeah.
So that's what the big thing is, to start locally. As a Christian, I also believe that there's lots of things we can do just through prayer. I mean, God swallowed armies just because somebody prayed. I mean, so it is possible to change the course. If there's somebody, for example, this is the kind of prayers I pray. If there's somebody in office who obviously doesn't represent conservative values, the Constitution, our traditional morality and Christian beliefs, they don't have to be Christians, but I mean, at least running things the way it was run when we were started, I pray the Psalm, let their days be short and let another take their place. So, I mean, it's like, I literally pray that. I don't pray that they die. I don't pray that they get sick. I don't want anything. I don't do anything like that. Although David prayed for the death of his enemies all the time in the Psalms. So I don't know, maybe there's a biblical defense for praying that way. I'm not advocating pray that way. Don't misunderstand me. So
right. No, I understand.
But I mean, it's, so prayer can also make a difference. And you know what? That gets to another issue too. I mean, the church is so pathetic today. the Christian church.
Mhm.
If you go to my website, you'll find a tab, the Fellowship of the Pharisees, and these
Yes.
are people that's my own tag that I gave them. But you have all these national Christian leaders who
Mhm.
came to light mostly when they were endorsing Donald Trump and they were winking at his idolatry and adultery, I mean, and
Mhm.
uh, and his crimes, and just saying, oh well, he'll give us conservatives on the Supreme Court, so we just need to, and he'll defend our Christian faith, and you know, uh, so anyhow, the Fellowship of the Pharisees,
There's
that's what
another
I was,
tab.
what I was just going to get ready to say though,
Oh,
is that
okay, good.
in addition to we're acting locally in politics, you can also act locally in your local church. You need to get involved. You need to make sure that your leaders are people who believe in the inerrant truth of the gospel. The Bible is the Bible. It says what it says. And if we don't understand something, that doesn't mean it didn't say what it said. It just means we have to figure out why we're confused. The Bible isn't
Mhm.
confused. We're confused. So,
Yes. Yeah, well said.
that's another way that you can make a difference is also if you don't want to get involved locally in politics, then get involved in your local church and work on spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ because that'll definitely change the world if nothing else will.
That's a great message, and one people really should take to heart, because I think that, generally speaking, people get in this mindset of that it's so overwhelming when you look at the big picture of everything that's happening in our world, and that has already happened, and it feels like it's unstoppable because it's so far gone, and you get this world weary, people weary mentality, and you
Mhm.
just kind of people just give up. They're like,
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it, so I'm just gonna tune it out and not listen to it and just live my life and pretend it's not going on.
Mhm.
And you're so right. You have to start small. It's the ripple effect. I think if you want big change, you do have to start small.
Mhm.
And to be cliche, I'm gonna be cliche because I love cliches. If you want to see the change, you have to be the change.
That's right. That's
But,
exactly right.
cliches are great because they're right and they're true, and that's one of those things that,
Well, as
you do have to.
Zig Ziglar used to say too, along those lines, he says, if it is to be, it's up to me.
I like
And
it.
that's, I
I
mean,
like that.
that's another really, and I say that a lot, especially when I'm facing those times, like while I'm really tired, and sometimes you just need to take a break. I mean, I'm not saying that this shouldn't be a 40-hour a week occupation for people. I'm not saying anything like that, but
Mhm.
yeah, we do have to understand that if we're not willing to be the instruments of change, then we're not likely to see the change we need to see to save America.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've, mentioned 9/11 a couple of times, and
Yeah.
and, because it is 9/11, the anniversary, it's 22 years today, which is
Mm.
crazy to me, so crazy. I just want to take a moment and recognize that, and recommend to people that they go and read your article, and go in with that open mind too, not that defensive mind, and really pay attention to what David's saying in that article. I think you will pull something out of there of value, whether you like it or not. You will pull value out of it, and I think that's important to do. And like I said before, I make a point of reading things that I don't like or necessarily
Mm.
agree with, because I feel like it's important to know, and I think that's important for everyone to do, whether they agree with something or not. Now, I noticed something else on your website. You
Yeah.
are writing a book. I want to talk about that for a minute. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning
You're-
that. Yeah, I'm doing a little funding thing there to try to help pay for it. One of the problems with my approach to conservatism is that the mainstream, Daniel Horowitz refers to it as conservative incorporated. It's kind of become a more of a corporation than a cause. And so a lot of the places that where my book topic would have been welcome, it's not going to be welcome anymore. And
Mm,
so I'm self-publishing. I know the road ahead of me in that regard. My wife is in the publishing industry; she's an editor, so I know that I've got a road to hoe there. But it is on the things we've been talking about. It is basically it's the working title right now is Heart of Liberty because that is basically That's America. I mean, forget everything else. Forget the decorations. Forget the white European part. Forget everything else. Why did America happen? It happened because we were searching for a way to live in liberty, and we weren't able. They weren't able to do it under King George. They weren't able to do it through other types of things like communism and socialism. So they came to America and they started their own country with the purpose of liberty. And so that was, I think the title's probably going to change. But in a nutshell, the book is basically, it kind of goes back to our roots. I defend the fact that liberty is basically foundational to our existence. There's even some scriptural reference. Paul tells us in the scriptures to guard our liberty. And he's talking about our Christian liberty, because as Christians, we're free to do whatever we want to do, but not everything is necessarily fruitful to do. So, so there's that angle, and then there is just some practical steps on how to get back into liberty. Some of the things we talked about, how to get involved. It's going to be not too agenda specific, or not agenda, issue specific. In other words, I'm not going to bring up, for example, COVID, which was basically the continuation of what happened in 9/11, although we were doing it in the name of COVID instead of in the name of international terrorism. So I won't be bringing that up. But what happened during COVID will be in the book, because our government took liberties away from us that they had no right to take away.
Yes.
You can debate all the other, again, you can debate the window dressing, but so anyhow, that's what the book is about. Heart of Liberty is the working title. And we are due to, we're launching, I'm working with a great organization called Storytellers, who is going to help me do this. They've been responsible for best-selling books with politicians and a lot of the conservative people in conservative radio. And so he's Bill Blanksheen is his name. He's going to be working with me, and we're starting officially this week. And we hope to be in print in time for the primaries. So we're shooting for like March or April, because the subject of liberty is going to be my issue going into 2024, regardless of party affiliation. If liberty's in danger, you're not going to be somebody I support.
I like that. I like that. And if more people had that mindset, I think we probably would have a lot better outcomes with everything. And if people would stop voting on the basis of, or I'll use the Trumpism, as the example. There's the never Trumpers. There's the never so-and-sos. So, essentially and quite literally saying, I will vote for a, dead tree in the woods instead of this, I will vote for anything. I don't know why I came up with that one, but that's what I came up with. So we need to stop doing that. We need to stop voting on appearances. I like the way he speaks. I like the way he looks, or she. We need to vote on issues and how they affect and what they're really doing and what they have done. And, not, and like you said, not on party anymore. I wanted to, so are you okay if we go over a little bit? Because I just have so many questions for you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
If that means I have to split this into two parts, then so be it. But my gosh, there's just so many things I want to ask you. I'm going to try and sum it up in essentially one question.
Okay.
Is there anyone right now that is, we got a little ways to go. There's people are going to drop in and drop out. Is there anyone right now that you are looking at that you're thinking this guy or woman, they've got some potential here. There are possibilities. Is there anybody that you're looking at right now that you'd say potential to? Ask you a loaded question.
That's a toughie.
It's tough, right? I'm going to tell you, I honestly don't know.
Well, okay, if you allow me the liberty to explain why I'm taking the position I am on some of these candidates.
Sure.
Ron DeSantis is really big as a kind of a rising star. There are a few national conservative talking heads who are endorsing him already. If you go to my website, I've written 4 or 5 articles, though, that DeSantis is in that populist camp that I was talking about earlier. He doesn't have a problem with using the strong arm of government to knock down somebody he doesn't necessarily agree with. His thing with Disney, for instance, I wrote an article when that happened. I'm not a big fan of Disney's wokeness. I mean, that's bad news. It's bad news for our kids because Disney targets their product toward kids. However, I don't agree with somebody abusing their power as the governor of the state or his party in the legislature, basically breaking the law by breaking all written agreements with Disney in order to try to punish them in some way, not for what they did, but because they spoke out against a policy of DeSantis. I wrote an article. Actually, I have on my website that it's called the GOP Hall of Shame. GOP stands for Gutless on Principles, not the grand old party, but it is also always about Republicans. DeSantis was my most recent inductee into the Gutless on Principles Hall of Shame because he's got some fascist leanings to me that I find to be very troubling from the perspective of the Constitution. I'm not second guessing why he's doing what he's doing. I understand his motivation, but how he's doing it is totally it's bad news in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So I'm not really not a big fan of DeSantis. Nikki Haley, right when I would like to like her, she usually does something silly. When she was still governor, I had a problem with her decision to go ahead and take the Confederate flag off of the state flag. It was a small portion of the flag. And again, what she did, I understood why. How she did it, I had a problem with that. And also too, when she went to work for Trump as our ambassador to the UN, I don't know. I just Nikki seems to be way too comfortable with whatever way the wind might be blowing at any given time for my comfort. She has some potential, but she kind of plays the politics game. I don't like any of the other candidates. I mean, Nikki and DeSantis are kind of like the two. I don't like Vivek. I think he's a nutcase. I don't like Pence, not because he used to work for Trump, but I wrote about Pence when he was governor of Indiana, and he's a vast. I call him pusillanimous Pence. He vacillates on anything. I mean, and he kind of goes with whatever is politically popular at any given time. The other candidates, well, like I said, I just really don't care for any of them. So
we've got
that's the Republican Party. I don't like any of the Democrats. Although I will say, and I know I'll get in trouble for this, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's a liberal, so I mean, he's already kind of in a camp where I don't particularly care for him. But he has some libertarian leanings on some really important issues that I find very attractive. It's like if I could take his libertarian leanings and put them in Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis, and I think I'd have my perfect candidate. I'm not saying I'd vote for RFK Jr., but I'm just saying that I wouldn't rule out a Democrat just because a Democrat is a Democrat.
Right.
There were some really good Democrats in history. JFK was a great Democrat. I mean, because he was a good president. He wasn't the progressive Democrat that most Democrats are today. So that's
right. He's an interesting guy. I find him very fascinating, and but I kind of feel like I'm in the same boat as you. You're just you have a lot more knowledge on all of them than I do, and and I agree with you on the Vivek Ramaswamy.
I would like to real quick. I would like to say that if he would decide to run again, he entertained it in 2020. I would be very in favor of Justin Amash if I could get if he would decide to run again. He's very libertarian, and he's kind of too libertarian for me in some ways. But overall, I mean, he's right on pro-life. He's right on the Constitution. I don't particularly care for some of his foreign policy points of view, but those kind of things tend to be done more in Congress than in the presidency anyway. So I would like to. In fact, I'll send it. I'll send a copy of this show to his. I'll post it on his Twitter account and see if he reposts it, because I would go for Justin Amash if he would decide to run again.
Nice. Very, very interesting. Do you ever think that, so the obvious statement is the Republican and Democrat Party, they are, they're the strongholds, obviously, for elections and mindsets of people. Do you see a point where the Libertarian Party is ever going to be able to surge forward? Is that even a possibility? I mean, it seems like could be.
I think it could be. One of the reasons Amash was going to run when he put up his exploratory committee, he was going to run as a libertarian. The primary reason for that was that the Libertarian Party is on all 50 ballots, on the ballot in all 50 states. The challenge right now, and that's because of the machines. The machines run the system. So the Republican Democrat machine has pretty much made it very, very, very hard for anybody who's not a Republican or a Democrat to try to win any kind of an election. There have been some successes with people who have run under a party label and then became independent afterwards. Unfortunately, those were almost always Democrats. And they became unaffiliated so that they could be even more liberal. I mean, Bernie Sanders is a case in point.
Sure.
So I would say yes, they could happen. Part of the problem with libertarianism for me is taken as a 100% package is not acceptable. Because, I mean, pure libertarians want to legalize prostitution. They want all drugs deregulated. I mean, because this is all in the quote of individual liberty. Well, that's true. But now let me go back to let me put my Christian hat on. Paul says that we have to guard our liberties. Not everything that we're free to do whatever we want, but just because we're free to do whatever we want as Christians doesn't mean we should, because not everything is profitable. So yeah, I'm in favor of more liberty, but I'm not in favor of that being done at the expense of our morality.
Yeah, ultimately, David, we're all just deep down in our hearts and our minds too. I like to believe that, we all just want that one simple word that is so elusive, it seems, in every walk and phase of life: balance. I mean, can we just get balance? And that pendulum is constantly swinging from one extreme to the other, and we never hit that middle point. And I certainly don't know if we ever will, but I don't know about you, but I sure as heck hope that I live to see a day, that we all live to see a day where there is actually this balance that occurs. And I won't put words or thoughts in anybody else's mind, but in mine, I would say we can't have that until we bring Christ back into everything for our lives and our society and everything. I don't know if we're going to ever see that happen in our lifetime, but it's certainly worth.
I don't remember which one of the founders said it. I think it was Mason, but I don't recall. But I do remember the quote. And he said, our Constitution was written. See, everything for me is about the Constitution. But he says the Constitution was written for a moral people, and it's wholly inadequate for any other. And so basically, it's like the Constitution is great. It explains what we're supposed to be free. All of our rights come from God. But we have to balance that, using your word. We have to balance that with the fact that it can only be applied correctly if it's applied by people who have a moral compass.
David, I honestly cannot thank you enough for taking the time, especially giving me some extra time here to talk about all these things. Again, I feel like we could, barely scratch the surface of topics here to talk about. And once again, I will send everyone over to the stridentconservative.com. That's correct, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. I go there, read these articles, take a look. You don't have a pre-sale up for the book yet, but keep an eye out for that.
Not yet.
Donate so it can see the light of day. I think what you're doing is really important, and I think it's really important for people to check out. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks again. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for this episode. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Take care.